Medieval Dynasty has been one of those games I kept on coming back to, but I couldn't give in. Or many times I would lose interest because it contained a lot of reading and detailed conversations became meaningless because it lacked emotion from the characters. And although technically speaking that hasn't changed and the game still lacks in voiceover work, in quests and the main storylines, the Medieval Dynasty has been taking the initiative to change and add more life to its world. Listen guys, I'm not a sound professional, I'm not a sound designer, I don't know the depth of work that goes into it besides maybe having a little idea. But what I will say, the ambient sound and the voices coming from the distance, whether it's someone being frustrated, whether it's kids playing outside and fighting, or even an outdated joke that comes from the distance in the village, it paints this game in a different view that I have not seen before. After the Medieval Dynasty magically appeared to me with their new announced update that introduced a more balanced and reworked fighting system along with new outfits and more emphasis on enemy camps, I decided to give this game another try, another spin if you will. Despite the fact that I've covered this game at least 3 other times on this channel, let alone I still was recommending it to other people despite the fact that I was having a little difficult time getting invested myself. However, this time around, I gave it another spin, and I'm glad that I did. When I jumped back into Medieval Dynasty, I immediately felt the life and the presence all around the villages. The life that was missing all this time. People were having different conversations. At times, certain phrases would repeat themselves time and time again, but that didn't seem to bother me at all. And this goes to my very first point. Although the main quests and jobs weren't voiced, the ambience from the villages and random encounters and conversations made it a lot more enjoyable to me. I felt like I wanted to get invested, which previously lacked, at least in my experience. I couldn't help but to notice the phenomenal optimizational changes as well, or perhaps improvements. The game is 4 years old, and I wouldn't go as far as saying that this game is aging or it's super outdated. The Medieval Dynasty has clearly developed in quality over the course of its existence, but running this on high settings and still maintaining an outstanding frame rate was so enjoyable and incredible to experience. The game has always been running fairly smoothly ever since it was launched in full release, but only with the Medieval Dynasty it seems like these guys are hitting that optimization a little extra harder than others, at least on the PC side of things. It's like upon every update the optimization is improved along with everything else. Let's go back to the combat changes for just a split second. Although this game wasn't suffering from a massive and terrible fighting mechanics, the improvement that came along with this update made previous system feel a bit off. Now, every time you engage in the fighting battle, every hit you're taking feels more impactful and more dangerous, which is a benefit for this game because it thrives on being as real as possible. Obviously, with that comes new items and new customization options for this game. For instance, you can now dye your clothing and make them stand out from the other characters. We also have been introduced to the new armor sets, which come in different varieties. With seasonal changes, I've always thought that the way it works is very similar to other survival games. One morning you just wake up and it's a new season, but not in Medieval Dynasty. We have a full circle of seasons and the half circle that always appears in your screen, which indicates how close you are to the next season in the game. It gives you something to look forward to, and you always know how deep into the season you are. The weapons you use against different enemies have different impacts now as well. Although the sword is great at slicing damage and very useful and dangerous against light armor enemies, the mace on the other hand is more impactful for those with the heavy armor sets. It contains a heavy punch. So you always have to be prepared for the enemy approaching you, and most importantly you will have to know the best way to handle that particular enemy in the battle. I got slightly carried away here. My main point is not to address the new update in full, not necessarily, although I am super stoked about it, but more so to address the previous criticism when it comes to as a full game. I am beyond impressed with the work that has gone into this game, seriously, especially ever since I previously talked about this. I was never given this game for free. I bought this with my own cash a while ago. I'm not trying to advertise this game down someone's throat either. I'm genuinely impressed with the quality and progress that has taken turn with this survival game for the best. Realistically speaking, this is not everyone's cup of tea. Let's be honest. Some will argue that this game is too detailed with realism, or perhaps it contains way more strategy-like elements. I personally grew up playing Cossacks as a kid, and over the years I have fallen in love with survival games, which is something I developed over the course of my life. And I think it mainly has everything to do with how survival games are replayable, and I always want to be able to get more out of games that I pay for. I think that could apply to a lot of people. But when you combine those two genres together, taking the best of both worlds, you get something different. And clearly, this is the type of game that is being desired right now as we speak, because let's face it, we get these types of dynasty games all the time that also include survival mechanics. Respectfully, not everyone will find Medieval Dynasty intriguing enough to play, but for those of us that love both of these genres, will most certainly love and enjoy this game and what it has to offer. Not to mumble furthermore, I'm going to leave this conversation at this. Despite my previous criticism for this game, the changes that I've seen take place after it's been fully released, I mean crap, let alone from my previous video, this game has impressed me a lot. So much so that I will nominate this game on Steam because I think it's very deserving. Obviously, you nominate whoever you want. I'm just giving you my 2 little coins here. That way you kind of know where I stand and how much respect I have for these guys. So, incredible work.